The camera pans across a bustling city street, horns blaring, pedestrians weaving through the chaos. A piercing scream cuts through the noise, sharp and desperate. "Daddy, that's my brother," a little girl cries, her voice trembling with urgency. The crowd parts, and a man in an immaculate suit freezes, his eyes locking onto the small figure clutching a tattered photo. His face crumples, and he collapses to his knees, tears streaming down his face. The world around him fades, and all he can hear is the echo of her words. This is no ordinary moment, it's a collision of past and present, a spark that will unravel a story of loss, redemption, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Elliot Grayson was a name that commanded respect. A self-made millionaire, he'd built an empire from nothing, his tech company revolutionizing the way people connected online. At 42, he was the picture of success, tailored suits, a penthouse overlooking the city, and a reputation for being unshakable. But beneath the polished exterior, Elliot carried a wound that never healed. 15 years ago, his life had shattered. His wife, Lila, died in a car accident, and their newborn son, Caleb, vanished from the wreckage. The police searched for months, but the case went cold. Elliot was left with nothing but grief and a gaping hole where his family once stood. He threw himself into work, building walls around his heart, convincing himself he could outrun the pain. On the other side of the city, in a rundown neighborhood where hope was a rare commodity, 7-year-old Sophie lived with her foster mother, Maria. Sophie was a bright spark, her eyes full of dreams despite the hand-me-down clothes and the cramped apartment. She clung to a faded photograph, the only keepsake from her early years, a picture of a baby boy, barely a few months old, with her mother's handwriting on the back, "Caleb, my heart." Sophie didn't know much about her past. Maria had taken her in as a toddler, found abandoned at a bus station with the photo tucked into her blanket. But Sophie held onto that picture like a lifeline, believing the boy in it was her brother, out there somewhere, waiting to be found. The story begins on an ordinary Tuesday morning. Elliot is rushing to a board meeting, his mind on a new merger, when he steps out of his sleek black car and into the chaos of downtown. Sophie, meanwhile, is on a rare school trip to the city's tech district, clutching her teacher's hand as they pass towering glass buildings. She's never been this far from home, and her eyes are wide with wonder. But when her class stops at a crosswalk, Sophie's gaze lands on a street corner where a group of teenagers is hanging out. One of them, a lanky boy with messy brown hair, is laughing with his friends. Something about his smile, the way his eyes crinkle, stops Sophie in her tracks. It's him. She's sure of it. The boy from the photo. Without thinking, Sophie breaks free from her teacher's grip and runs toward the boy, her small voice calling out, "Caleb." The teenager, confused, turns to her, but before he can respond, Sophie's eyes dart to a man across the street, Elliot, stepping out of his car. In that split second, something in his face, his posture, triggers a memory she can't explain. "Daddy, that's my brother," she screams, pointing at the boy. Elliot freezes, the world tilting beneath him. The photo in Sophie's hand, now thrust toward him as she runs closer, is one he recognizes instantly, a picture of Caleb, taken days before the accident. The crowd murmurs, phones are pulled out, and the moment is captured, going viral within hours. Elliot, trembling, kneels to Sophie's level, his hands shaking as he takes the photo. "Where did you get this?" he whispers, his voice raw. Sophie, tears in her eyes, tells him about the bus station, the foster home, and her belief that Caleb is her brother. The teenager, whose name is Jake, approaches cautiously. He's 16, a foster kid himself, with no memory of his early years. But the photo Sophie holds, and the way Elliot stares at him, stirs something deep within. The next few days are a whirlwind. Elliot, usually so composed, is unraveling. He can't shake the possibility that Jake could be Caleb, but years of false leads have made him wary. He hires a private investigator, Sarah, who specializes in missing persons. Sarah digs into Jake's past, uncovering a murky trail of foster homes and incomplete records. Meanwhile, Sophie insists on staying close to Elliot, her determination both heartbreaking and inspiring. Maria, her foster mother, is hesitant but allows supervised visits, moved by Sophie's conviction and Elliot's visible pain. As Elliot spends time with Sophie, he's struck by her resilience. She's a child who's known loss, yet she radiates hope. She tells him stories of her imaginary adventures with Caleb, how she's dreamed of finding him since she was old enough to understand the photo. Elliot, who's spent years avoiding connection, feels his walls crumbling. He starts to see Lila and Sophie smile, and it both comforts and terrifies him. Jake, on the other hand, is skeptical. He's built a tough exterior to survive the foster system, and the idea of being someone's long-lost son feels like a fairy tale. Yet, he can't deny the pull he feels towards Sophie's unwavering belief of the investigation hits roadblocks. Jake's early records are missing, and the bus station where Sophie was found has no surveillance footage from that time. Sarah suggests a DNA test, but Elliot hesitates. What if it's negative? What if he loses Caleb all over again? Sophie, sensing his fear, slips her hand into his one afternoon and says, even if he's not Caleb, he's still my brother. And you're still my daddy. Her words break something open in Elliot, and he agrees to the test, knowing he can't keep running from the truth. While waiting for the results, Elliot faces another challenge. His company is on the verge of a hostile takeover. His absence, consumed by Sophie and Jake, has left him vulnerable. His board pressures him to return to work, but for the first time, Elliot prioritizes something over his empire. He takes Sophie and Jake to his lake house, a place he hasn't visited since Lila's death. There, they share quiet moments, Sophie teaching Jake how to skip stones, Elliot telling stories of Lila's love for stargazing. For Jake, who's never known stability, these moments feel foreign but warm. He starts to let his guard down. Even as he braces for disappointment, the DNA results come back, and the moment is agonizing. Sarah delivers the news in person. Jake is not Caleb. Elliot's heart sinks, the grief of losing his son rushing back. But Sophie, undeterred, hugs Jake tightly and says, "You're still my brother." Her acceptance shifts something in Elliot. He realizes that family isn't just blood, it's the bonds you choose to build. Jake, too, is moved, admitting he's never had anyone fight for him like Sophie has. Elliot makes a decision. He'll pursue adopting both Sophie and Jake, giving them the home he's longed to rebuild. The takeover threat looms, but Elliot returns to his company with renewed purpose. He negotiates a deal that saves his empire, using the same determination that once drove him to bury his pain. The viral video of Sophie's scream has sparked public interest, and Elliot uses the attention to launch a foundation for missing children, vowing to help others find their way home. Sophie and Jake move into his home, their laughter filling spaces that were once silent. The adoption process is slow, fraught with legal hurdles, but Elliot fights for it, just as Sophie fought for her belief in Jake. The story closes with Elliot, Sophie, and Jake at the lake house, watching the stars. Sophie points to a constellation, saying, "That's Mommy watching us." Elliot, tears in his eyes, pulls them close. He's not the man he was, a millionaire defined by wealth, but a father defined by love. The camera lingers on their faces, then pans to the sky, where a single star seems to shine brighter.